Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm here with Rob Feiner of RZF Images. Rob is a headshot photographer, and he has methods and techniques that he uses to make you feel more relaxed so you get a more authentic shot, and he's going to talk about those. We're also taping this in the time of quarantine, and Rob is following New York State approved protocols for COVID prevention. So when you come to his shop to get a headshot, you can feel that everything that New York is recommending is being done. So hi, Rob, tell us how you make people feel comfortable to get that authentic shot.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Well, I basically have a different way of shooting and conducting my headshot sessions than people might typically find. A lot of times you go into a photographer studio for headshots, and they give you a specific amount of time, one, maybe two looks, depending on what their product offerings are, and a specific amount of photos with each package. So what I've done is I've eliminated all that. I offer people unlimited time. I have a maximum of 2 sessions that can be booked during a day, morning and afternoon. And there are unlimited looks, so you can have different styles. So basically tops, whether it's blouses, shirts, jackets, sweaters. You basically can have a variety of looks to choose from in your final images. And I offer a lot of posing and direction tips to make you relax and produce authentic expressions throughout your session.
So why are headshots so important? I mean, I feel like I know why, but what's your perspective?
Well, I think they're incredibly important these days. Today, especially, your headshot is your digital handshake. We're all in some level of quarantine, lockdown, whatever you call it, where you're probably not working at your office, or if you are, you're there only a short amount of time during the week. So most of your interaction with people is going to be in a couple of ways. They might be looking at your website. They might be looking at information on your LinkedIn account. You may have a Zoom call that you're doing with people. And even there, it's important, because if you're doing a Zoom call and all of a sudden you need to, just go get a glass of water, or if you're in a conference with a whole bunch of other people and it's going on for about an hour and you have to hit the bathroom, well, usually what you should do is you should turn off your video. Now, should have optimally a headshot on there. And a lot of times what people have on there is 2 things. Either their name spelled out, which is great, but what does that really say about you? Or they have some image that was taken who knows where, some social gathering. But either way, those things don't really look as professional as having a professionally done headshot that is lit properly and composed properly.
That is so true. And I use my headshot that I had done a few years ago. You can tell it doesn't look exactly like I look now, but I love that headshot. I have it on my LinkedIn and I have it on my Zoom as my placeholder for when I do need to leave a meeting or I don't want to show myself in a meeting. And I think headshots personally are very important especially right now, because most of the time during this quarantine, we don't look as good as we did. I don't look as good as I did before. I've gotten my hair done once, but the headshot I had before quarantine looks so much better than I typically look today. That's kind of what I want to present as a business person to the world. And it is one of the first things people say when they search for or see when they search for you online is your headshot. And quite honestly, with these fireside videos that I'm doing, when I do the thumbnails for these videos, I go look for the person's headshot online. I look at their LinkedIn, wherever I can find it. So headshots are vitally important, but how are you doing headshots during COVID now?
Well, what I'm doing is, in terms of my protocols, I'm cleaning my studio space, the bathroom area, and the other room that's off my studio space every time prior to someone coming into it. So it's all cleaned and sanitized. I'm always wearing a mask throughout our session. I'm even, taking a little Clorox wipe and wiping down the doorknob to the entrance of my studio space each time. So I want people to feel confident that the measures I have in place are going to be those that are going to make them comfortable to know that coming here is going to be safe. When somebody is in front of my camera, obviously they're going to be taking off their mask, but we're going to have at least 6 feet of distancing between myself and them when we're going through our session. Now, what I usually do is I tether my camera to my laptop. So before COVID, BC, I was showing people on my computer screen the images, and we select the images that they want to purchase after we do the session. Now, after COVID, AC, we are going into my space right off of my studio space, where I have a large screen TV, and there's a couch in there that we can maintain 6 feet of distance. I'm mirroring my laptop to my TV so that we can make the selections that way and still have that distancing there. And at that time, we're both wearing face masks. I also have 2 HEPA fans in my space. So, I'm running those constantly as we're in our session as well, just to have one more level of air quality.
So that sounds like a good system. And that is what New York has, I think you've gone above and beyond what New York has required for COVID protocols with the HEPA filters, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. I'm basically in the protocols that they're saying that malls should have with special air filters, essentially.
Right. So how often do you think a person should have a headshot done? A new one?
The best thing is to have one done probably every 3 years, but you should have it sooner if you've changed your look. So for women, if it's a new hairstyle, if you colored your hair, you should probably have a new headshot, because what people are looking at, if they're going online to your website or to LinkedIn and they see an image of you, and then they do a Zoom call and that image does not look the same as you, there's a subconscious question of trust at that point. You want the image to look like how you are today and not 3 or 8 years ago. For guys, it's the same thing. If you've changed your hair color, you changed your hairstyle, if you grew facial hair, if you shaved your facial hair, if you're wearing glasses versus contacts, anything that's changed that is different from your headshot, you should update your headshot. It should be the person you are today and not the person you were in the past.
Guilty. But I like the one I have on LinkedIn, but it is older. But I do think that you're right. And I'm trying to do the same thing with these videos, which is let the person see your real authentic self. So when they finally do get to meet you in person, or maybe they never will, maybe it'll all be over Zoom, it's going to be the same person they're seeing. But I had another question for you. The one headshot I have that I really like, that was done after 3 hours of hair and makeup. So are you doing that, and how are you doing that now?
Well, I have a hair and makeup artist that I use, and I recommend, especially to women, I recommend using that person, and she's really great. She practices, all the safety measures that she can. She's wearing a mask during any hair and makeup sessions that she's doing. Obviously, she can't do hair and makeup from 6 feet apart. That would be a lot challenging. But if you're comfortable with it, I think what you're going to find is that, if you're going to a hair salon already, if you're going to get a manicure, there are measures there that are in place that are probably similar to what you have when you're working with my hair and makeup artist. If you're getting your hair cut, you can't have a barrier between you and your hairstylist. So you're going to have that same kind of distancing. But I think you can rest assured that you're in an environment that already has been cleaned and sanitized. You're both going to be wearing masks, except for that brief moment where if she's applying makeup, you're going to have to take that off. But she's going to have a mask on all the time. And if you're not comfortable with having somebody do that, that's okay. What I usually recommend is that for women, that they bring their makeup with them. I always recommend in any case, whoever does your makeup, that it should be a light application. You don't want to have it too heavy for headshots. And you can bring your makeup here and do it. You can bring your hairbrush here. I encourage people not to forget their hairbrushes, men as well, especially in the summer when things can get really frizzy. And, you know, I have a hair dryer that people can use. I think that's, you know, not really an issue in terms of COVID to use something like that. But I do encourage people to, you know, do what's most comfortable for them. And if it's bringing their own makeup and applying it here and just blowing out their hair here with their own hairbrush, that's fine. But you want to, you know, have a groomed look, basically, men and women.
Right. So I can't really do my own hair. I've tried. I mean, I guess I could do the front, so I wouldn't worry about the back.
Exactly.
But I think for the makeup, if you're really uncomfortable doing the makeup, but you do want that very polished look, you could watch a video and just copy the person in the video. I know there are a lot of makeup artists who are doing videos now. So, and you could also consult with the makeup artist on Zoom. And if you're really uncomfortable being in the same room and having them touch you, and just have them show you how to go through and do your makeup. Because I do think for a really good headshot, it is important to have some grooming done.
Oh yeah, and it's amazing how, you know, we are just adapting to these times. Or who would have thought that, you know, you would get makeup tips on YouTube or Zoom?
I know, it's amazing what's going on now, and all the activity and how we're connecting. And it's wonderful that you're able to do headshots again, because everything now is visual through the computer, right?
Exactly.
I was listening to someone, Karen Kopp, and she was saying, even when we do see each other again, if we start networking or whatever, it's going to be like this, because we're all going to forever. Well, the next couple,
Exactly.
probably. So,
Or with face masks with the lower half of your face photographed and applied on that mask.
that sounds great. So
Which I've tried, actually.
did it work?
It worked for the most part. I took a fabric that you could apply photos to and print it out on, and then I cut it out and put it over a face mask. It was like an iron-on backing on one side. It was interesting because the perspective is in terms of the being too large or too small. That was the challenge on that. So my first one was like way too small. The next one I tried, it was a little bit too big, but I was like, okay, I'm going to stick with that right now. And, you know, I'll use that just as a gag basically right now. Cause it was pretty hot to wear that because it was another layer of fabric and a fairly thick fabric over a face mask.
Yeah, I bet. Well, so I do think that it is important for people to be able to see your face somewhere. So, and a headshot is a really good way to do it. I mean,
Exactly.
it is really hard for some people to get good photos of themselves. Some people photograph really well. Other people, like my husband, they just never come out looking like they are in photographs. So what do you do with somebody like that?
Well, first of all, everyone is photogenic. It's probably that you don't have two things, the right light or the right lens on a camera. And it could be a smartphone or a point and shoot camera. What you usually find, like on a smartphone and point and shoot cameras, the lenses are a wider angle lens. What that does is it tends to distort your face. So you'll have, like, your nose will be bigger, your mouth will be look like a different shape. It doesn't give you a pleasing look than a lens that has the focal length for portraits. The other thing is, in many cases, you're being shot in light that is really not conducive to portrait and headshot photography. It's usually, if it's indoors, it tends to be overhead light, or it's a harsher light from a lamp that might be what your light source is. If it's outdoors, usually the best times to shoot are in the morning until about 10 o'clock and after about 3 o'clock. When you get, between 10 and 3 o'clock with sunlight, that overhead light can be really harsh. So that's why most people look at their images and say, you know, oh, I really don't, you know, photograph well. It's not true. You need to have the right kind of lighting that bring out, you know, your facial expressions, and, you know, don't give you those raccoon eyes that you usually see in light, you know, when you're lit from an overhead light source. That makes a big difference. And that's why it's important to look for professional photographers who know how to light subjects and know how to have the right composition and get you in a certain part of the frame, so you know, your head's not, you know, cut off, like, you know, right above your eyebrows, or you're too close or too far away. It's really important to have a certain distance from the camera, and not be too close or too far, because too close, you're going to have that distortion. Too far, you're basically minimizing yourself.
Sounds a little complicated to me. I'll leave. But that's a very good observation. So if you have bad photos out there and you don't want to get a headshot because you think it's not going to turn out well, it's just that you weren't doing it right. And if you find somebody who really knows how to shoot a good headshot, then no matter who you are, you will look good. And you can even do it without hair and makeup. And then if you don't like that, if you're working with Rob, you can go try putting a little more makeup on if you've brought your makeup with you, doing your hair a little bit different if you maybe brought some hair gel, and play around with it a little bit, because he gives you the time to do that. And he also makes you feel comfortable. I mean, I would feel very comfortable with you photographing me. I feel like there's,
Thank you.
yeah, you're very laid back, and, you know, you've really thought things through, and you've obviously worked with numerous clients. How many people do you think you photographed in your lifetime?
Oh God, I've lost count.
So hundreds?
At least hundreds. Actually, we did an event. I'm part of a network of headshot photographers that we've been meeting on, you know, video casts even before Zoom, and we basically are a support group. We learn from each other. We talk about best practices, and it's a nationwide group. And last month, we actually did a nationwide event called 10,000 Headshots. And this was for unemployed workers that had lost their job due to the pandemic. We set up pop-up studios all around the country in all 50 states. I did one with about 7 or 8 other photographers in Manhattan. And we promoted this to people through various social media, through some of the news outlets in local markets. And we basically had people coming in for complimentary 10-minute sessions for headshots. And our number one priority throughout all this was to have social distancing guidelines. So we made sure that, you know, the flow of people coming through the studio spaces, and this was done in storefronts that were empty. That Brookfield Properties, one of the largest real estate companies in the country that owns a lot of different malls and storefronts, they donated the space to us for these events around the country. And the first thing we did is say, okay, how are people going to flow in and out? How are we going to keep people from, you know, being close to each other? So we had sessions that had different times throughout the day. So I saw close to 40 people myself that day. And, you know, again, the number one thing we did was make sure everything was in line with social distancing and COVID guidelines. But these were people that were out of work, that needed updated headshots, that couldn't afford headshots themselves, because a professional headshot's going to cost somewhere over, you know, starting at $250, $300 in many cases. And we offer them these complimentary 10-minute sessions. We actually uploaded the photos to them via special software that they got that later that day. We didn't do certain things like, you know, we weren't cropping things. We weren't doing a lot of editing at that time. But what we were doing with the lighting that we had and the posing and direction that we gave people, they had some really good headshots just from straight out of camera.
And that the lighting is, I think, the hardest part when you're doing photography, right? And there's certain ways to set it up that you understand that would take I mean, maybe somebody could learn it from YouTube or whatever and try to do it themselves, but I think it takes years of experience to really get it perfect. right?
It's true. It takes years of experience, and it's also an investment because a good, what I use, for example, is my setup now is constant lighting. It's always on. It's LED light panels. You can use strobe lighting that offers great light. You have a softbox on it that softens the light, so it's not as harsh when it's coming flashing out from a strobe. But the thing is that these are very expensive lighting products, and so, and not only is an investment for that for a photographer, but then you have to learn how to use it as well. And it's even important for video. What I'm using right now is I have a mini light panel that's on me right now that I've been doing some webinars showing people how to have better video presence for calls like this. Because a lot of times you go on these calls, and over the last 4 or 5 months, I've been doing a lot of networking and trying to, plan for the future, meeting a lot of people, trying to, mine, different networking groups for potential business and referrals. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you go on those Zoom calls and you see people with various quality of light, sometimes no light. And so I've been talking to people about how to have a better presence through there's two things basically: is have the right perspective for your camera and have the right lighting. So a lot of times, for instance, my laptop right now is sitting on about 4 or 5 different books to bring the level up so I'm eye level with the camera. Otherwise, you get that beautiful like up the nose shot, which is never pleasant. And then I have a directional light that is a daylight balance. So, when you look at incandescent light, it's very yellow. If you look for a light, and these things are not that expensive also. Light I use is like $60, and it's a great light source. It lasts, it has a built-in battery, so it lasts for a couple hours at least, depending on how high the intensity is that you set it on. So it's not a big investment to get these things to have a good presence on something like Zoom. So it's important to have, a great still photography, headshot and profile picture, but it's also important in video to also have the right kind of lighting and presence as well.
I agree. When we all first started with this Zoom, I mean, we've been using it for years in my husband's law firm, but we had just been all sitting in a conference room, and, the lighting wasn't great. The sound wasn't great. And I know when we all first started using Zoom, you see like people's dirty kitchens in the background.
Oh yeah. Well, you see the, the odd videos on YouTube of, somebody's on a business call and, their husband just walks by in their underwear, or there's something going on in the background that's very distracting. I've been on these calls where, all of a sudden you just see like, a cat is just slowly walking back and forth behind you, and it's distracting. And that's the thing that, just like in still photography, you don't want to have a lot of distraction behind you. You want the focus to be here. So I even recommend for my still photography, for my headshots, that women wear no jewelry, because that is going to be a distraction depending on what you wear. I mean, some of it could be subtle, but there are times people will come in and I'm like, that's going to really take away from, they're going to focus on that. That's, on your brooch you have or your necklace, and not on you. So that's key. And it's the same thing in, in video, in Zoom, is like, I have this custom background that I've designed that has some branding. Because if I didn't have this behind me, you see a cluttered bookshelf. And when you see people position their cameras where behind them is a kitchen or another room, there's a big light behind them that is brighter. It's the brightest light source in the area. So they have what I love to call the witness protection look on video. It takes away from you. It minimizes you. And the one thing you want to do, in whether it's still or video, is when you're speaking to somebody, you want the focus to be on you. So one of these days, we're going to get back to face-to-face meetings, hopefully without masks. You want that person to know what you look like, and also that you have a professional demeanor about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to go, a long way, in the long run.
And I agree. I mean, I hate to be judgmental, but when I do look for people's professional headshots online, if somebody doesn't have a professional headshot, my assumption is they haven't gotten there yet, right? So they're developing their brand, their personal brand, or their company, or whatever it is, and they haven't gotten to the point where they realize they need the professional headshot, because I do feel like professionals need a well done professional headshot, and we all need it. And I have a couple, one I like better than the other, but
Mm-hmm.
they were both done by professionals with the proper, as you say, lighting and all the other little details that go into it. There are many different things. So great. Is
Exactly. Yeah. Well, think about this. You've developed, this is your first impression of somebody online these days, especially these days. Now, think about your career. You've gone to college, you've invested in that, you've invested in your career, whether, with the apparel that you wear, whether it's suits or whether it's something that's, tailored or polished looking. You invest in continuing education in your business. Why wouldn't you also invest in, if you're putting all that information on your website, your LinkedIn page, and then you have a headshot that somebody took, at a pool party.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What did I say about your professionalism?
Exactly. And I think it's just a norm in the business world today that we are in, no matter what level business you have, that you have a professional headshot done. It's just
Exactly.
for a business person. So
yeah, think about recruiters now looking at, people for a position they're looking to fill. The first thing that they're looking at is the headshot. That's the first thing that catches their eye. And then they're going to look at everything else. Recruiters have said, if there's no headshot in a LinkedIn profile, they're skipping it. They're going to the next person. And it's all part of your overall package. It's really, how do you brand yourself as the consummate professional in whatever field you have? And that's one aspect of what you need to do these days.
absolutely. Is there anything else we need to say about your business in particular?
I don't think so. I'm open for business. Like I said, I only have 2 sessions I do each day to keep things safe and to spend as much time with people that I need to. I want people to know that, when I'm focused in a session with you, I'm totally focused on bringing out your best so you can have your best headshot ever.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's been a pleasure being here.